Welcome back to another Ab Summer Target. Tonight, we're going to talk about the NHL Mock Draft 2024. So, Marco, give me a little bit more information what we're going to do tonight.
Well, Coach, I know there's a lot of mock drafts floating around YouTube right now, so we thought, got to do ours, right? I think people are curious about kind of what our thoughts are for the mock draft, so we thought it would be fun to do. So basically, we're going to go through the first 16 picks for this particular episode. So we're going to go through Entertap, and myself will be the GM for each team. We're going to kind of alternate picking the players in the draft in order. We try to put ourselves in the mind of each NHL GM in terms of what their organizational needs are and who potentially could go in that order. So it should be fun, Coach. And I'll be curious to see the comments, what people think about some of the selections that we made on behalf of some of the teams, and curious to see how they compare to other mock drafts that are kind of floating around.
Let's move on right away to the NHL Mock Draft 2024. And Mr. Enartap, you have the pick number 1, and you are on the deck with the San Jose choice.
First of all, the San Jose organization would like to thank the Stanley Cup champion winners for this year, the New York Rangers. We're even being prognosticators here today. With the number 1 pick, the San Jose Sharks select who else but Macklin Celebrini, center out of Boston University. A well-deserved Hobey Baker Award in his freshman year was really just the icing on the cake for Celebrini. Pretty much he carried the Boston University on most nights, as they finished top 4 in the nation. He's an electrifying center, has done nothing but further widen the gap between him and the rest of his class. As far as transition creators go, no one from the past 5 drafts holds a candle to where Celebrini stands at this point in his progression. His gear shifts, quick inside moves, bait and switch dangles, giving goals, off puck net drives to open passing lanes, and he can do so much more. There hasn't been one single question mark in terms of who should be number 1 this year, and San Jose is proud to select him. He's an electrifying center and is well-rounded in all aspects of the game and is even a very strong defensive player.
Well done. And now we are going to go with the first pick of Mr. Marco tonight. And on the deck, we have the Chicago Blackhawks.
Well, there's a lot of different directions that the Chicago Blackhawks could go here, Coach. We've seen a lot of different things, in terms of mock draft. In this mock draft, gentlemen, with the second overall pick, the Chicago Blackhawks are very, very proud to select Artyom Levshunov from Michigan State. Big right-handed defenseman who, as a freshman in the NCAA, was just tearing the league up, right? Very rare for a right-handed defenseman of this age to play as many minutes, lead many individual categories for defensemen. We know the value of right-handed defensemen. He's big, 6'2", 209 pounds already, and probably just one of the more well-rounded defensemen in this NHL draft. Certainly not, I wouldn't call him like a offensive defenseman, probably a two-way defenseman, but that certainly has upside to play on your first unit power play potentially, and project to be a top-line, top 2 defenseman in the NHL. So
great. On the deck, the Anaheim Ducks, Mr. Enartap.
And again, Anaheim very excited here to select number 3, and they're going to go with the one thing that you can't teach, and that's incredible size. They're going to go with Anton Silayev, a defenseman out of the KHL. There's 2 players I would consider that are probably unicorns in this year's draft, and I think he's one of them. He stands at 6'7" and he skates extremely well for his size. And he uses that size and reach well to command the ice around him, and which makes him really effective at shutting down opposing rushes, attempts that are made, limiting their effectiveness by forcing them to the outside. And he's very good at doing that. He does have to work on his situational awareness a little bit more and decision making, but that should come with time. Very young. Been obvious at times that he's a teenager that has played with grown men for that exact reason. It's been a valuable experience for him. His offensive game it's a bit limited, in all fairness. He makes good first pass, particularly in breakouts, which can get the puck moving in the right direction. But then once he's into the offensive zone, his abilities are a little bit limited. But I don't suspect that that'll be a big problem. A lot of scouts are sort of saying that aspect of his game can be developed and he becomes a 35 to 40 point producer. All the other assets that he brings to the table will be extremely valuable. With this third pick, Anaheim will go with Anton Silayev.
All right, on the deck, Marco, and we have the pick of the Columbus Blue Jackets.
Well, guys, like more than any draft that we can remember, like every team's going to have different lists, right? Like at this point, we're doing our best to kind of assess what the needs of the teams are. And there's so many different ways that Columbus could go with this pick. Considering they don't have a GM right now, I'm hoping that the management will watch this video, recognize my GM talents, and maybe make me an offer to come in and work with Trevor Timmins. Interestingly enough, as a Habs community, we know Trevor Timmins. Trevor Timmins is the head of scouting in Columbus. What do we know about Trevor Timmins, guys? He loves big boys. Like he likes NCAA players and he likes big boys. And he likes, for many years he wanted a centerman, and he likes guys from the WHL, right? And kind of see where I'm going with this, guys. With the number 4 overall pick, the Columbus Blue Jackets are very, very excited to select from Medicine Hat, Cayden Lindstrom. Big center, maybe winger. We're not 100% sure, but 6'4" guys, 216 pounds, big specimen of a guy who can skate, has a really, really high-end shot. And as you can see, he was a little bit hampered with injuries this year. Not impossible that some teams are a little bit nervous about that. With only 32 games this year, still though, 27 goals, 19 assists for 46 points. If you look at his point per game ratio, higher than a player like Berkly Catton, even in terms of points per game, right? So really a nice start to the season. And you can't really kind of look at his performance, after he came back from injury, because, he was kind of coming back and it was a difficult kind of time for him to do that, right? So Cayden Lindstrom, as we know, it's his size, his speed, and his shot. Some questions around his playmaking ability. He's very much like a north-south player, more of like a power forward. A little bit unusual to have kind of like a shoot-first centerman in the NHL. So some people might call him kind of, maybe he might end up on wing. Maybe he's kind of like a baby Eifield kind of player. But I think it's a great fit for Columbus. You now have Fantilli and Lindstrom down the middle for many, many years. So I think this would be a really nice pick for the Columbus Blue Jackets.
But the next pick is really the Montreal Canadiens. In our tab, I'm sure he's very happy to have that pick. But also in our tab, we have to go with the other side. You're going to get some comments in the chat at some point after the video. What it will be your selection for the Montreal Canadiens 5th overall pick in 2024?
Yeah, we anticipate all sorts of comments, and that's the fun part of it all. But wait a minute, is that Hughes and Gordon? I see them running to the stage. I don't believe it. Here they go. And with the 5th pick, the Montreal Canadiens cannot believe it that he's fallen to 5th place, but they will take the right winger, Ivan Demidov, out of the KHL, 5'11", 181 pounds. From a skills perspective, guys, Demidov has been almost as close to a lock for the number 2 spot all year long as Celebrini has been at the number 1 spot. He's probably the most dynamic, versatile, and creative handler to come through the draft in recent years. He's the complete package offensively and projected to be a top 6 difference maker for a team at the NHL level. Dynamic in his ability to create offense and brings a blend of elite puck skill, excellent hockey sense, and an elite release. Perhaps one of the best, if not the best, in this particular draft here. He's not quite as good as Michkov offensively, but he's not far behind. However, he does bring a stronger defensive game to the table than Michkov does, and he has an upside as a possible 100-point winger in the NHL. Demidov really ranks in the top 5 percentile from all reports in terms of his shooting and passing metrics, and he's really dangerous in transition. He gets himself in those positions where he becomes quite the threat. He has excellent hockey IQ. He's a dynamic puck handler, playmaker, and goal scorer. He's electrifying. He's the kind of player that will bring the fans out of their seats, and not since the time of Kovalev have we seen something like that. So I'm very excited to announce him to the Montreal Canadiens at number 5. having him for many, many years to come.
Guys, if this happens, let's take a screenshot of this and will it into existence. I think the entire Habs fan base would be really happy with that. I like this outcome for Montreal for sure.
Well said. Number 6, we don't have the logo yet of the Utah, so I'm going to say with the Arizona Coyotes. Marco, you are on the deck.
Listen, again, lots of different ways to go here, but the Utah Hockey Club, very, very excited to select with the 6th overall pick in the entry draft, one Mr. Zayne Parekh, the right-handed, dynamic, super dynamic offensive defenseman from the Saginaw Spirit. I don't think we've seen too many offensive seasons like this from a defenseman in the CHL in a long time, right? Like we're talking about 33 goals, 63 assists for 96 points in only 66 games. With Saginaw. Really, really nice postseason too. Like Saginaw is about to play for the Memorial Cup. We'll see if his play increases his stock even more. He had a decent playoff. What we're talking about here, guys, is an elite offensive defenseman with decent size, right? Like 6 feet, 181 pounds. Really nice size and mobility for somebody like this, right? Looking at Arizona's depth chart, they don't have a guy like this. They desperately need somebody to come in. They picked Silayev last year, is more of a two-way defenseman, so I think that this is a really, really nice fit for Utah. Somebody in a couple years that will come in, be able to run their power play. I'm sure some Ottawa Senators fans might be a little disappointed to see him come off the board here, but I think this is a really nice pick for the Utah Hockey Club.
Here we go. 7th overall pick go with the Ottawa Senators, and in our tap is on the deck.
And man, these defensemen are really flying off the board at this point. Why buckle the trend here? It looks like, for me, the Ottawa Senators will go with Carter Yumchuk from the Calgary Hitmen, defenseman, 6'3", 190 pounds. His game sometimes could be a bit of a headache from what you see, but really the combination of his physical assets and standout offensive game are difficult to ignore. And Ottawa is in dire need of a defenseman that brings that kind of aspect of the game to the table. He immediately jumps off the page as a 6'3" right-handed defenseman who's got a booming slap shot. He's a dynamic puck handling skills. He possesses a level of supreme confidence in his game and with the puck, and it allows him to really create offensive entries. He dangles through pressure at the attacking blue line. Shots on net are very, very accurate. Transition, his hands are probably his best asset. He's quite fast for his size, and he can be quite shifty. His mechanics need a little bit of improvement, as does his explosive acceleration that's needed. But I'm confident about those things that they can be improved on as he becomes a little bit older with the proper coaching and so forth. He is quite a dynamic individual, and I think this is something that Ottawa has been in dire need of over the last few years. Ottawa's pleased to go with Carter Yumchuk.
The next on the deck is the Seattle Kraken at number 8.
Yeah, guys, like Ron Francis, like you're just saying, Coach, he's looking on the board. Even he's a little bit surprised that Zeev Buium is still on the board here. So he runs up to the podium even faster than any other GM to select Zeev Buium from the Denver, who is a NCAA champion, had a great Frozen Four, was just absolutely dominant. For all of us who watched a lot of it with Lane Hudson, like we got a good front seat view of what Zeev Buium can do, and he is a really silky smooth, two-way defender. Maybe has the potential to be leading a power play, but at the very least, he's going to be a second unit power play guy that's going to be, just eating a whole bunch of minutes. An elite puck mover, really, really good situational awareness within games. Really, really good at puck management as well. Good size, just around 6 feet. Really, really dynamic guy. And there's a lot of people that have him a bit higher in the draft here. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if he goes in the top 5. But like we've talked about in this draft, guys, like it's really going to depend kind of who teams have on their list. But I think looking at Seattle's depth chart, they have a good young prospects coming up at forward, but they do not have a Zeev Buium in their prospect pool. So Ron Francis would be super excited to land a guy like him at number 8. So
awesome. Great job, Marco. Now we are going to be on the deck with the Calgary Flame. And
another theme has been these GMs that are running to the center stage. Well, this one's probably the fastest one. Conroy is going like crazy to that center stage. And look who he's bringing behind him. Who other than Hockey Hall of Famer Jarome Iginla, because he's about to announce the drafting of his own son, Tige Iginla, out of Kelowna Rockets from the WHL, 5'11", 186 pounds. It really took some time, but Iginla really forced his way into the top 10, I'd say, from about early part of the year moving forward. And we saw him in the juniors game, just how effective he can actually be. He's a high-end skater with agility and capability to sort of beat opponents in a straight line or even change pace to catch defenders off balance. He's a menace to deal with, gets in people's face, especially in the offensive zone. He's dangerous with the puck as he is without it. And when you combine his natural offensive instincts with a dangerous wrist shot that he has, you have the making of a serious goal-scoring threat. When he has the puck, Iginla shows off quality handling, strong puck protection, and probably one of the greater releases that any of these players this year are bringing to these teams. He really catches goalies off guard. You can't tell where he's going to shoot that puck, but he finds open spaces all the time. He's a good forechecker. He approaches it with a lot of tenacity. He's got a lot of grit to his game. Again, one of those characteristics that you need. Not so much, well, obviously during the year, but I'm saying you really need it once the playoffs come around. He has that DNA, that competitiveness that his father brought to the table in Calgary many years ago. He'll need to sort of round out his play a little bit, especially on the defensive side of the puck. But, he's very complete package in my eyes. Like I said, his tenacity and shot are probably his biggest assets that he brings to, I'd say, if not a top line, definitely a top 6 role. Calgary is ecstatic to select Tige Iginla.
Great job, Artyom. We're going to move now on the pick number 10 for this time for the deck is the New Jersey Devils. And for some reason, Marco C on the table. We have a breaking news.
We have a trade to announce, gentlemen. Craig Conroy, who has now caught his breath after running feverishly to the podium to select Tige Iginla, has somehow collected his energy and has made a trade with the New Jersey Devils. The New Jersey Devils trade away their 10th overall pick in the 2024 entry draft for Jacob Markstrom and Vancouver's 2024 number 1 pick. So Markstrom to the New Jersey Devils. Finally, solution for the New Jersey goaltending issue. And then Calgary, Craig Conroy with the big splash at the draft, overshadowing Kent Hughes, the Calgary Flames. And with that pick, the Calgary Flames proud to select Sam Dickinson from the London Knights.
Wow.
With Sam Dickinson, guys, again, another defenseman who could easily be, be gone realistically way before 10th overall pick. Again, it really depends how things are going to shake out. But this is a really well-rounded defenseman with a booming shot. Like in terms of his offensive skills, like that's probably what he's the most known for. He has a cannon back, but a really good two-way defenseman, pretty physical, like brings a little bit more of a physical element, but plenty of offense. I really like the upside in his offensive game as well, too, guys. 70 points, like a more than point per game player, and on a winning team, right? Like the London Knights are going into the Memorial Cup here as a favorite to win, and Sam Dickinson is a huge part of that.
Unbelievable that the fans and Randy Walkman right now celebrate the new pick of the Calgary Flames. And they are celebrate Randy Walkman. I'm sure he is very happy about that one. But we're on the deck now, number 11. Is the Buffalo Sabres.
And you know that I'm going to make some enemies with this pick from Buffalo, but I know I'm going to make Coach a very, very happy man, because Coach has been singing this guy's praise all year long and justify it. With the 11th pick overall, the Buffalo Sabres will go with Berkly Catton out of the WHL Spokane Chiefs. 5'11", 170 pounds. And really, this guy, he's an exciting player. And I talked earlier before about Demidov being able to get fans out of their seats. This guy is right there as well with that same thing, and he's a nightmare to defend. He's very much debated, gone anywhere from, sometimes I've heard him in the conversation at 2nd or 3rd overall, as low as 15 sometimes, and some people make the confusion. Well, he's on the smallish side, but I mean, when you consider that Buffalo has already quite a few big players on the team, and now that with last year's pick and now Catton, they're going to have a couple of very, very skilled players to go along with that. He's a skilled forward. The only question mark I would say is time will tell whether he'll be a centerman or whether he'll be a winger. But, you know, this guy, he's got the smarts to play the middle of the ice at the next level, and his statistical profile projects, you know, for him to be a point producer in probably at least the top six role, could even raise a little bit more than that. He's very slippery playmaker. He identifies open spaces very quickly, darts towards well as he skates there, and he gets the puck into open air for his teammates as well. He's a dual threat in the offensive zone. Defenders, they find it hard to cheat in his playmaking ability because he can quickly, you know, change gears on you. He's got that shot that he can release, or he can deke around you. So it's hard to know, you know, whether, or he can make that perfect pass as well to an open teammate. So he's got so many different tools that he brings to the table. I think something like this will go a long way to help Buffalo continue with their offensive prowess that they've been exhibiting over the last couple of years for sure. They're a very young team, but you know what? They're going to grow together, and I think they're going to become quite formidable. He's very creative. He has a high hockey IQ. His passing and shooting are complemented by his elite puck handling abilities, especially, you know, the way he uses it to get off the boards and turn defenders inside out. But the Buffalo Sabres are extremely happy to welcome Catton to their team this year.
Awesome. Well said, well done. And now we're on the deck. The Flyers.
For the Philadelphia Flyers, another smaller former NHL great, Danny Briere. You know, Danny Briere is a guy based on last year. You know, it's his first year as a GM, and doesn't seem like a guy that's really against taking a risk and swinging for the fences. I don't know if you can guess which direction I'm going when I talk about swinging for the fences and maybe taking a risk. With the number 12 overall, the Philadelphia Flyers go with Cole Eiserman. Guys, lots of differing opinions on Cole Eiserman. He's either going to be 40, 50 goal scorer in the NHL, or he's going to be the next Lindstrom or the next Silayev in the NHL. In terms of shooting, there's no question that Cole Eiserman is the best shooter in the draft. Notice I don't say goal scorer, because goal scoring in the NHL is a lot more than just shooting, because you need to be able to have good reads and know where to go on the ice. That's probably the knock on Eiserman, is his hockey IQ and his ability to play within a system and be connected with other players. There's no question that he's an elite shooter. Just broke Cole Caulfield's record for the most goals in the U.S. program. Dynamic goal scorer. I'll say this, like, he, other than shooting the one-timer from the dot, which is probably what he's best known for, he does have like the ability and the desire to go and crash the net, which is good. That maybe makes him a little bit different from a player like Wallstrom. I have a little bit of hope there because he does have that net drive to his game as well as that. But my concern is, if you look at most of his goals, they're at the top of the circle on the one-timer. And at the NHL level, I'm just, you know, with how better teams are covering those types of opportunities, he's going to need to evolve his game. But he's very young. He's, I think, a couple of weeks away from being eligible for next year's draft. The Philadelphia Flyers feel they can work with him. The raw potential is there. You know, great pickup for them at number 12. You know, I think they'd be excited. And you can just imagine a line of Michkov and Eiserman in the future. That would be pretty electric if somebody like Eiserman pans out for them.
Pick number 13, overall pick 2024, and Anaheim is on the deck with the Minnesota Wild. Exactly,
and the Minnesota Wild are very pleased to take right-handed winger from the Oshawa Generals, Beckett Sennecke. He's a 6'2", 175-pound winger. You know, when watching Sennecke earlier this season, you know, the flashes of high-end offensive potential really pop out at you. The problem was that these were just flashes and not the norm. But as the season went along, the flashes became more frequent as Sennecke found more consistency in his game, and that's that's why we see his stock has risen quite a bit. And by season's end, he was playing probably his best hockey. He's supremely talented. He'll try anything to gain an advantage or to generate offense. He's a student of the game. Might not always succeed with the things that he tries or attempts, but he's really testing out what works and doesn't while expanding his creativity. I think he's got game-breaking ability. He can split defenders en route to the net. He's got great stick handling abilities, and he can bury that puck in quite a few highlights that have been excellent in terms of highlight reels. Let's put it that. Main issue with Sennecke is consistency in this, but he competes well and has shown he's got good forechecking ability. It's not when he's off the puck, I think that's an area that he has to be more engaged in, and I think that too will come with time and with proper coaching. I think that's something that really just has to be brought to his attention more, and he will improve in that area. But what a great pickup here for Minnesota. They're very pleased to announce Beckett, Sennecke onto their team.
Well said, Marco. Now you have the San Jose Sharks on the deck for the second time on the top 16.
Yeah, Coach, I've received a lot of calls from Can't You Use for this pick, but I'm standing pat, and I'm going to pick a player here. The San Jose Sharks, they desperately need to fill the cupboards here with as many prospects as they can. With the 14th overall pick in the 2024 entry draft, the San Jose Sharks are very, very excited to pick from Ukarit in Liga, one Konsta Helenius, right shooting centerman or right winger, who is really, really impressive two-way player, Coach. Like the way, again, I'm no expert, right? But from the reports that we hear and the viewings that I've had, you're looking at somebody who maybe his floor is like an Anton Lindell from the Florida Panthers, like a really, really good, solid two-way centerman, or maybe even high end, like really kind of everything works out. Maybe a poor man Sebastian Aho, just a really, really good two-way player with still decent offensive upside. He is playing Liga, played against men, is currently playing at the World Championships as well. Some experience versus men. Probably somebody that's NHL ready relatively soon as well, which is great news for San Jose because they desperately need bodies in their pipeline to come in and play. So I think this is a great mix, after picking up Celebrini, earlier in the draft, Will Smith last year. I think he's just a really good complementary piece for that roster. And San Jose all of a sudden, which I think we all agree are deep in a hole of a long rebuild. This is a nice piece to come in and really add a different dimension to some of the other young players that they've already brought in the last couple of years. Konsta Helenius.
Well said. Now we have the Detroit Red Wings with Anaheim, the next pick on the deck.
And I know this is where I'm going to receive a lot of comments, but bear with me for a bit because I'm trying to put myself in Eiserman's mindset. And if there's one thing Eiserman does is he goes off, thinks outside the box many times. I'm going to really reach here, but I think it's going to be a great gamble for Detroit. They will select right-handed defenseman Charlie Elick from the Brandon White Wheat Kings of the NHL. He's a type of defenseman whose stock has really risen lately, and it's been very, very quiet. But his stock has really risen, and I know if you look at most of the scouts, he's not right now in the top 15, but I'm telling you, this is the kind of player that down the road, a few years, we're going to go back and say, can you believe he was selected much later? Well, we're not going to make that mistake here tonight. Eiserman's going to select Elick. He's the type of defenseman who seems easy to project into a future role for Detroit. He's been relatively productive, and interest for him really stems from his dependability in transition games. And he's effective, he's physical, and he plays a good defensive game. He has excellent first pass out of the defensive zone, and this makes him one of the best defensive zone transition defensemen in the WHL. His skating and his strong 6'3" frame also lend themselves well towards his robust defensive game that he plays. He really closes gaps and defends the line very well. He wins pucks, net front battles, and easily transitions into offense. Like I said, he's a very physical player, the kind of player that as some of Detroit's defensemen are getting on in age and will be very soon leaving. I think complements somebody like Moritz Seider very, very well. Very punishing in his body checks that he delivers, but he doesn't really go chasing those hits. He just measures them, and when the opportunity's there, you better have your head up. Otherwise, you're going to feel his presence. He shows a lot of promise as a second pair matchup defenseman in the NHL, whose real value will come in full view in the playoffs, in my eyes. He's very poised. He's that, what can I say, like that meat and potato kind of defenseman that you rely on, but you don't always see on the score sheet as much as you would like. He's right-handed, as I said earlier, brings so much athleticism to the game as well. I think it's worth the gamble. I know Michael Devellano will probably kill me as well for this, but telling you, this guy will be the real deal.
Well said, Artyom. Marco, I feel like Artyom is not a teacher. He's a salesman person.
Yeah, he's gonna need to sell that one, Coach. Like Doug Armstrong here, looks at that pick, and I think 16th overall here. I think St. Louis was also really in for a defenseman. If you look at their pipeline, they have an aging D-core. So I think would they entertain trading this pick? Maybe, but I think at this, with what's on the board here, I think it would be very hard for St. Louis to pass up two defensemen. Coach, like I'm really debating between two guys. I've got Cole Hudson is still on the board. I know it might be a bit high for someone like that, but he's right there. Then you've also got Jiricek there, the right-hand defenseman, was much, much higher on this board. And, so I think Doug Armstrong goes with the commodity, here, like with the right-handed defenseman, Adam Jiricek, 6'2", right-handed defenseman, kind of lanky at, under 170 pounds. But looking at his brother, has potential to fill out quite a bit. Very similar to his brother, kind of an injury-plagued draft year for him, which is probably one of the reasons why you see him drop a little bit. But this could also be kind of one of those pick guys that he could be somebody that has fallen just because he had that injury and didn't have the opportunity to play in the World Juniors either. I think this would be a really nice pick for them. Like I said, I could easily see them go with someone like Cole Hudson there because they're going to need somebody to run their power play. Torrey Krug is not getting any younger. And so I think either one would be a really nice pick for St. Louis. But they go with the bigger guy. But I think Cole Hudson's would drop pretty soon here, a little past further our number 16 coach. But Adam Jiricek, really nice pick for St. Louis. Really, really happy with that selection if you're Doug Armstrong.
Wow, but we complete the board from 1 to 16. Great work for both of you guys. If you look about all the names there, they have approximately, 7, 8 defensemen at the top 20. First scout said it would be that way. Maybe the only name is not there, honestly, for me, is Nygaard for Norway. It's really the players maybe is not at the top 16 in my opinion, but the rest, most of you are going to nail it. Maybe not with the right team, but on the top 16 at the NHL Draft 2024.
Guys, if this snapshot turns out to be true, how do you think the Montreal fan base would react with Montreal landing Demidov?
And you know what? This year is also one of those years that you can almost take those top 16 with the exception of Celebrini and you can throw them in a hat and mix them up and they can land at different spots. It's that close of a crop. It's going to be exciting this year when it actually does materialize, the draft. I'm sure they'll probably have more trades and off-the-board picks than we had today.
I think you could almost, if you were going to name this draft, I think a good name for it would be the Baskin-Robbins draft, right? Like 31 flavors. You have all kinds of different players, that have different styles, different size, different, skills and strengths. Like there's really a little bit of everything for everyone, right? If you want like, bubblegum flavor, but then with a scoop of like pistachio ice cream on it, there's every flavor for every GM. So it could be very interesting.
It was another pleasure to have both of you with me tonight on the Ad Summer Target. We did the mock draft 2024. Can't wait to see you until the next time. But before we leave, we want to remind everybody, don't forget to click on the like, subscribe, and leave us a comments about this episode. And of course, remember, you have greatness inside of you, and we wish you an amazing, great, blessed day, everybody.